5 years without touching her until the millionaire decided to reclaim his wife. And the unexpected. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's dive into the story. It had been 5 long years. 5 years of cold silence, of a marriage that had become nothing more than a formality. Sarah stood by the window of her luxurious home, staring out at the city below, the lights twinkling in the distance. She felt a profound emptiness. She had once been in love with the man who now barely acknowledged her existence. Richard, her husband, a successful millionaire with a sharp mind and an even sharper focus on his empire, had seemed perfect at first. But somewhere along the way, their love had faded. What once started as passion, built on mutual respect and admiration, turned into routine. Long business trips, late nights at the office, and a lack of genuine communication left their home cold. Richard had become a stranger, someone she didn't recognize anymore. She often wondered what had gone wrong. What happened to the man who once held her in his arms and whispered sweet words in her ear? Yet, despite everything, a part of her still longed for the connection they had once shared. The silence in their home was deafening. Sarah had tried everything. She reached out, begged for his attention, but it was all in vain. Richard was too consumed by his work, his success, to notice her. She had even considered leaving, but what would that do? She had nothing left but the memories of a marriage that had once been full of life. She sighed deeply, turning away from the window. That night, she would attend yet another gala, an event that Richard had organized. She had no desire to go, but she knew it was expected. It was always the same, another night of forced smiles and hollow conversations. As she prepared herself, a strange feeling crept over her. Was this what her life had become? A routine of pretending, of living in the shadow of a man who no longer cared for her? She glanced at herself in the mirror. Her once vibrant eyes now seemed dull, weighed down by the years of disappointment. The doorbell rang, snapping her out of her thoughts. It was time. The gala was waiting, and so was Richard. She walked towards the door, her steps slow, as if she were walking toward her own fate. Little did she know, that night would change everything. Richard, in his cold, calculating way, had a plan in motion. A plan that would force him to confront the truth about his marriage and his feelings for Sarah. He couldn't continue living this lie. He needed to reclaim what they had lost, no matter the cost. And as the night unfolded, Sarah would find herself faced with the unexpected, the truth that had been hiding in plain sight for so long. But would it be enough to repair the damage that had been done? Or was their love too broken to be fixed? I don't know what went wrong, but it was too late now. Sarah sat quietly at the lavish dinner table, the soft clink of cutlery and murmurs of conversation surrounding her, yet feeling like she was in a different world. It had been 5 years since she had felt any genuine connection to Richard, and the truth weighed heavily on her heart. She smiled weakly at the guests around her, pretending to enjoy the evening, but inside, she felt lost. The same old faces, the same old routine. She glanced across the table at Richard, who was deep in conversation with a business partner. His sharp suit, his confident demeanor. He looked every bit the millionaire that he was. But to her, he seemed like a stranger. She remembered the man she had married, the man who had promised to love her, cherish her, and make her his priority. Where had he gone? And why had he pulled so far away from her? As the evening dragged on, Sarah found herself alone for a moment, standing by the balcony. The city lights twinkled below, beautiful yet distant. She thought about the years they had spent together, all the laughter, the promises, and the love that had once been so strong. But now, all she felt was a hollow emptiness. She had tried everything. She had waited, hoped, and even begged for his attention, but nothing had changed. Richard had become consumed by his work, and in the process, had forgotten the woman who had once stood by his side. A tear slipped down her cheek, and she quickly wiped it away. She couldn't let anyone see how broken she felt. Just as she was lost in her thoughts, she heard footsteps approaching. It was Richard. He had left his conversation and now stood next to her, looking at the same city view she had been staring at just moments ago. "Sarah," he said, his voice calm yet distant. Are you all right? She turned to look at him, her heart aching. There was no warmth in his eyes, no concern in his tone. It was as if he was checking off a box, ensuring that she was still there. I'm fine, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. He didn't respond immediately, but she could feel his eyes on her, as if he were trying to figure her out. And then, as if an unexpected impulse took over, he spoke again, this time with more urgency. I know things have been hard, but I want to fix this, Sarah. I want to reclaim what we had. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't expected him to say that. She had been preparing herself for the same old routine, the same dismissive attitude. But this was different. She looked at him, searching his face for any sign of sincerity. You want to fix this? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. He nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. Yes, I've been a fool. I've been so focused on everything else that I forgot about the one thing that really matters. You. Us. For the first time in years, Sarah saw a flicker of something in his eyes. It was vulnerability, something she hadn't seen in him for a long time. Could it be that he truly wanted to make things right? Or was this just another attempt to smooth things over, a temporary fix that would soon fade away? The question lingered in her mind, but she couldn't bring herself to push him away just yet. There was something about the way he spoke, the way he looked at her, that made her wonder if there could be a chance for them after all. As she stood there, with the night stretching out before them, the silence between them felt different. For the first time in a long while, it didn't feel like a chasm separating them. It felt like a chance to rebuild what they had lost. Richard took a small step closer to her, his voice soft but firm. Let's start over, Sarah. Let's take this one step at a time. I don't want to lose you. Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. She had heard those words before, but they had always felt empty. Now, for the first time, they felt real. But was she ready to believe him again? Was she ready to take that risk? The answer was still unclear, but one thing was certain. Things were about to change. And Sarah wasn't sure if that would mean the beginning of something beautiful or the final end of everything they once had. I don't know what to say, Sarah thought as she stood there, the weight of Richard's words sinking in. He had said he wanted to fix things, but could she trust him again? Could she really believe that after all this time, he had finally realized what truly mattered? She glanced at him, standing there in the soft glow of the balcony lights, looking more vulnerable than she had ever seen him. The man who once seemed invincible now seemed so human. It was a strange feeling for Sarah. She had spent years feeling invisible to him, her needs and emotions brushed aside, while Richard's world revolved around his empire, his wealth, and his success. And yet, here he was, admitting his mistakes, asking for a second chance. But how could she simply forgive him? How could she let go of all the pain, the loneliness, and the resentment that had built up over the years? She turned her gaze back to the city lights below, the same lights that had once symbolized hope, now serving as a reminder of the life she had left behind. Richard, she said, her voice soft but steady, you can't just expect me to forget everything. You can't expect me to trust you overnight. Richard's face fell, but he didn't look away. I know, he replied quietly, and I'm not asking you to forget. I'm asking you to give me a chance to show you that I can change, that I can be the man you deserve. Sarah took a deep breath, trying to steady the storm of emotions that were swirling inside her. It felt like a test, one that she wasn't sure she was ready to face. But deep down, a small part of her wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that this wasn't just another empty promise. After all, they had been through so much together. They had shared so many memories, so many moments of love and joy. Could that still mean something? Could they still rebuild? She shook her head slightly, the weight of the decision pressing down on her. I don't know if I'm ready, Richard, she admitted. I don't know if I can just pick up where we left off. I'm not the same person I was 5 years ago. He nodded, as if he had expected that answer. I don't want to rush you, Sarah. I just want a chance to show you that I'm willing to fight for us, for our future. His words hung in the air between them, filled with a mixture of hope and desperation. Sarah closed her eyes, letting the cool night air wash over her. She had to admit, a part of her was tempted, a part of her wanted to give him a chance. But another part of her was terrified of being hurt again, of putting her heart on the line only to have it broken once more. As she opened her eyes, she turned to face him again, her decision still uncertain. I can't promise anything, Richard, she said slowly, her voice tinged with both doubt and hope. But I will give you a chance. A chance to prove that you're willing to fight for me, for us. Richard's face lit up with relief, but he didn't say anything more. Instead, he simply reached for her hand, his grip warm and steady. Thank you, Sarah, he whispered, his voice filled with gratitude. As they stood there, hand in hand, the silence between them felt different. It wasn't the silence of two people drifting apart, but the silence of a couple standing on the edge of something new. Sarah wasn't sure what the future would hold, but for the first time in years, she felt a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something real, something worth fighting for. I don't know what to think anymore. Sarah sat across from Richard in their living room, the space between them feeling both intimate and vast at the same time. After their conversation the previous night, things had changed. She had agreed to give him a chance, but she was still unsure of what that meant for them. Could she truly trust him again? Or was she simply setting herself up for disappointment once more? Richard had been distant for so long that the idea of letting him back in, even just a little, felt like a leap into the unknown. But here he was, sitting in front of her, trying, really trying, to show her that he was different now. He had come home early that morning, just to spend time with her, to talk, to listen. He was doing all the things she had begged him for in the past. But could a few days of effort undo 5 years of neglect? The silence between them grew, but it wasn't the uncomfortable silence it had been before. It felt like something was shifting, like something new was brewing. Richard finally spoke, his voice softer than she had ever heard it before. Sarah, I know it's not going to be easy. I know I can't just expect everything to go back to how it was before, but I want to try. I want to make this right. Sarah looked at him, her heart heavy with emotion. His words were sincere, but could they really rebuild what had been broken? I've been thinking a lot about us, she said, her voice trembling slightly. And I know I'm not the same person I was when we first got married. I've changed. And I think, maybe, that's a good thing. But I don't know if you can change with me. I don't know if you can love the person I've become. Richard leaned forward, his gaze intense, but full of understanding. I don't need you to be the same person you were, he said quietly. I just need you to be here with me. I'm not asking you to erase the past or pretend like everything's fine. I'm asking for a chance to show you that I can be the partner you deserve. Sarah felt a lump form in her throat. Could she really take that leap? Could she trust him enough to let him in again? She looked away, her mind racing. It felt like everything was on the line, like she was standing on the edge of something huge, something life-changing. What if I can't trust you again? She asked softly, her voice barely a whisper. Richard didn't hesitate. Then I'll spend the rest of my life trying to earn that trust, trying to show you that I'm worth it. But you don't have to make any decisions now, Sarah. Just take your time. I'll be here, and I'll do whatever it takes to prove that I can be the man you need. The words settled between them like a promise, but Sarah wasn't sure she was ready to accept it. She stood up and walked over to the window, looking out at the city below. The lights seemed to sparkle in the distance, but they felt far away, almost unreachable. Was she ready to believe in them again? Was she ready to take that chance? I don't know, Richard, she said quietly. I don't know if I'm ready. He didn't press her further. He simply watched her, his face filled with both patience and hope. Take all the time you need, he replied softly. I'll be here, whenever you're ready. And for the first time in years, Sarah felt the weight of the decision lift just a little. Maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for them after all. Maybe, just maybe, she could find it in her heart to forgive him, and to forgive herself. But for now, all she could do was take a deep breath and wait for the future to unfold, one step at a time. I don't know how it happened, but the days started to feel different. Sarah found herself slowly letting down her guard, though the walls she had built over the past 5 years weren't easy to tear down. It wasn't that she had suddenly forgotten the hurt or the years of loneliness. But there was something about Richard's persistence, something about the way he was trying, truly trying, to show her that he was committed to making things right. He didn't rush her, didn't pressure her into forgiving him, but he was there, every day, taking small but meaningful actions that spoke louder than any promises. Sarah had always been a woman who needed action over words. And Richard, for the first time, seemed to understand that. They spent more time together, dinner dates that didn't feel forced, walks in the park where they could talk freely, moments of silence that didn't feel uncomfortable. For the first time in a long while, She felt like they were reconnecting, like they were beginning to find their way back to each other. One evening, as they sat in their living room, the soft glow of the fireplace casting shadows on the walls, Richard turned to her. "Sarah, I know it's not easy, and I know I've hurt you more than I can ever make up for. But I want you to know I'm here, for you, no matter what." His words were simple, but there was so much sincerity in them that Sarah felt her heart tug. She looked at him, her mind still torn between caution and hope. "I don't know if I can ever fully let go of the past," she said quietly, her voice filled with a vulnerability she hadn't allowed herself to express in years. "But I do know that I want to try. I want to see if we can build something new, something better." Richard's expression softened, and for the first time, she saw not just the millionaire who had been wrapped up in his own world, but the man who was genuinely trying to heal, to make amends. "I'll do whatever it takes, Sarah," he said, his voice full of resolve. "And I'll wait for you, as long as you need." The words hung in the air, and for the first time in years, Sarah felt like she could breathe a little easier. She didn't know what the future held, but something inside her told her that, just maybe, they could have a future together. Over the next few weeks, Sarah began to open up more. She shared her feelings, her fears, her hopes. And Richard listened, truly listened, in a way he never had before. There were still moments of doubt, moments where Sarah wondered if it was all just a temporary fix, if Richard's change was real. But with every passing day, the connection between them deepened, and the walls Sarah had built around her heart started to crumble. One Saturday afternoon, Richard took her to a quiet cafe they used to visit when they were first dating. As they sat across from each other, sharing stories and laughter, Sarah realized that this was the man she had once fallen in love with, the man who had been lost, but was now fighting to find his way back to her. "Do you remember this place?" Richard asked with a smile, his eyes sparkling with a hint of nostalgia. "I do," Sarah replied softly. "It feels like a lifetime ago." "Maybe it is," he said. "But we have a lifetime ahead of us now. A chance to make it right." Sarah reached across the table, taking his hand in hers. She didn't have all the answers. She didn't know if their marriage could be fully healed. But in that moment, she realized that she was willing to try. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to hope again, to believe in the possibility of a future with Richard. And as they sat there, the world around them faded into the background, and all that mattered was the quiet promise of a second chance. "I don't know what made me doubt so much before," Sarah thought as she stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her dress for the evening event. It was a charity gala that Richard had organized, and this time, there was a different energy in the air. She had seen the man she had married slowly come back to life over the past few weeks, and there was something real now, something solid in their connection. He had kept every promise he'd made, not with words, but with actions that spoke louder than any vow. Tonight, it wasn't about the fancy dinner or the people in their lavish circles. It was about them. She smiled softly to herself as she caught a glimpse of her reflection, finally seeing the woman she had been before the pain set in. She was ready to face Richard, ready to face their past, and ready to see what could be built in the future. As she walked down the stairs into the foyer, Richard stood there, waiting for her. The look in his eyes was soft yet filled with something more, something she hadn't seen in years, admiration. He looked at her, really looked at her, like he saw her for the first time in so long. "You look beautiful," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. She had heard those words before, but this time, they felt different. There was no coldness in his voice, no emptiness in his gaze. It was pure sincerity. "Thank you," she replied, her voice steady, though her heart raced. He extended his arm to her, and without thinking, she took it. They didn't need words. As they walked together to the car, the world around them seemed to fade, and for the first time in years, Sarah felt the weight of her heart lifting. The event was beautiful, the guests were lively, and the cause they were supporting was meaningful. But Sarah couldn't help but notice how different this night felt. For the first time, she wasn't just playing the part of the perfect wife beside her husband. She wasn't pretending to be happy or content. She was actually living in the moment, feeling the connection they had reigniting. After the speeches and the glitz of the event, Richard led her outside onto the balcony, away from the noise of the gala. It was just the two of them now, surrounded by the cool evening air and the soft hum of the city. He looked at her, his expression serious. Sarah, I know I've hurt you more than I can ever truly make up for, but I want to spend the rest of my life trying. Her breath caught in her throat, and she felt her heart swell. This was what she had wanted all along, a man who was willing to fight for her, who wasn't afraid to show how much she meant to him. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. Richard, she didn't know what to say. Her heart was full, yet so many questions remained. Could they truly heal what had been broken? Could they build a life together again, from the ground up? Richard reached out, taking her hand in his. I'll wait as long as it takes, Sarah. Whatever you need. I'm here, and I always will be. She looked up at him, the city lights reflecting in his eyes, and for the first time in years, she felt herself believe in the possibility of love again. Maybe it wouldn't be easy. Maybe it would take time, but she wasn't afraid anymore. They had a chance, a real chance. And as she stood there, her hand in his, she knew they would walk this path together, no matter what the future held. I don't know how we got here, Sarah thought as she stood outside their house, her mind racing with the turmoil of the past few days. It had all started so promisingly. Richard had shown up, trying to make things right, trying to earn her trust again. But now, after all that had happened, she was faced with the reality of it all. Richard had made a mistake, but could she ever forgive him? Could she really allow herself to believe that the man in front of her was the same man who had ignored her for so many years? Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of Richard's voice. Sarah, please. He stood in the doorway, his face etched with concern, his posture stiff with uncertainty. I didn't mean for things to go this way. I've never been more sorry for anything in my life. But I need you to believe me, to believe that I'm doing everything I can to fix this. She looked at him, her chest tight. She had always believed in second chances, but the wounds from their past were deep. She didn't know if she was strong enough to face the hurt again. Richard stepped closer, his voice softer now, almost pleading. I know I've hurt you. I know I've failed you. But I can't lose you. Not again. She wanted to believe him. She really did. But the fear of being hurt again, the fear of being disappointed once more, was so strong that she could barely find the words to respond. I don't know what to say, Richard, Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know if I can go through this again. Richard reached out, gently touching her arm. I'm not asking you to forget the past, Sarah. I'm asking you to let me show you that I'm not the man I was before. I've changed, and I'll keep changing if it means I get to have you in my life again. Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the weight of his words pressing down on her. She had seen his actions, seen the way he had tried to rebuild their relationship, but it wasn't just about actions anymore. It was about trust, something she wasn't sure she could give him again. I need time, Sarah said, taking a step back, her heart heavy with the decision. I need to figure out if I can trust you. If I can trust us. Richard's face fell, but he didn't push her. Instead, he nodded, his expression softening. Take all the time you need, he said quietly. I'll be here, waiting, for as long as it takes. The words echoed in Sarah's mind as she walked away, her thoughts swirling in a storm of doubt and confusion. Could she really move forward? Could they ever truly heal the wounds of their past? As she entered the house, she felt the weight of the years they had spent apart pressing on her. But she also felt a flicker of hope, a small, quiet spark that maybe, just maybe, they could find their way back to each other. The next few days passed in a blur of emotions. Sarah spent hours walking around the house, sorting through her feelings, trying to make sense of everything. She knew she had to make a decision, but the idea of choosing between holding on to the past or letting it go was more difficult than she had ever imagined. Richard, true to his word, gave her space. He didn't push, didn't demand. He simply waited, patiently, for her to come to him when she was ready. And in that silence, Sarah realized something. She had never stopped loving him. The love was still there, buried beneath the hurt, the disappointment, and the years of separation. But it was real. It was undeniable. And maybe, just maybe, it was worth fighting for. I don't know what it was that shifted, but something had changed between them. As the days passed, Sarah felt a new sense of clarity. The doubt that had clouded her heart was starting to fade, replaced with a quiet certainty that maybe, just maybe, there was hope for them after all. Richard had waited patiently, not demanding her love or her forgiveness, but offering it freely, giving her the space she needed without question. That alone spoke volumes to Sarah. As they spent more time together, she saw him in ways she hadn't before. not just as the successful businessman or the distant husband, but as the man who was willing to fight for her. The man who, despite everything, still loved her deeply. One evening, they sat in their living room, the soft light from the fireplace, casting shadows across the room. The air between them felt lighter now, as if the weight of their past was beginning to lift. Sarah took a deep breath, knowing that what she was about to say was the culmination of everything they had worked through together. "Richard," she began, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I've spent so long running from the pain, holding on to the past. But I can't keep living like that. I've spent so much time thinking that I had to protect myself from getting hurt again. But the truth is, I've been hurting myself by holding on to that fear." Richard's eyes softened as he listened to her, his expression a mixture of understanding and hope. "I'm not asking you to forget, Sarah," he said gently. "I'm asking you to trust me again, to let me prove that I'm the man you deserve." Sarah smiled, her heart full as she reached for his hand. "I'm ready, Richard. I'm ready to trust you again. I'm ready to give us a real chance." The weight that had been holding Sarah down for so long seemed to evaporate as she spoke those words. She felt free in a way she hadn't in years, as if she had finally let go of the baggage that had kept her from moving forward. Richard squeezed her hand, a smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "Thank you, Sarah," he whispered, his voice full of relief and gratitude. "You don't know how much this means to me." As they sat together, the fire crackling softly in the background, Sarah realized that the journey they had been on, full of pain, regret, and doubt, had brought them to this moment. They had come through the storm, and now they were standing together on the other side. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time, they both felt like it was theirs to create. Richard leaned in, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. "We have a long road ahead of us," he said, his voice low and sincere. "But I know we can do it. Together." Sarah closed her eyes, savoring the warmth of his words, knowing that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them side by side. She had found the courage to forgive, to trust, and most importantly, to love again. And with that love, they would rebuild their life, brick by brick, from the ground up. The future was theirs, and for the first time in a long while, Sarah felt like she had something to look forward to, a future with the man she had always loved, and the life they would create together. I don't know if it was fate or just the culmination of years of struggle, but Sarah found herself standing in front of the life she had always wanted. She looked at Richard, who stood by her side, a small but sincere smile on his face. Their journey had not been easy, and the scars of the past would always be there. But today, they had something new. They had a future. It had been a year since she had made the decision to trust him again, to rebuild their marriage from the ground up. In that time, they had faced challenges, but they had faced them together, with honesty and a commitment to making things work. Richard had proven that he was not the man he had been. His actions spoke volumes, and slowly, Sarah allowed herself to believe in the love that had once felt lost. They had built a foundation of trust, and that trust had allowed them to open up to each other in ways they had never been able to before. As Sarah looked at him, she realized that their love had transformed. It wasn't the same as before. Before, it had been full of passion, but perhaps it had lacked understanding. Now, their love was deeper, more mature, built on a foundation of friendship, patience, and mutual respect. She knew that they could never go back to what they once had, but that didn't matter. What mattered was the life they were building together. Richard reached for her hand and squeezed it gently. "I know we've been through a lot, but I want you to know, I'm never going to give up on us," he said, his voice filled with conviction. "We've come this far, and I know we can go even further." Sarah smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her heart. She had waited for so long to hear those words, but now, they didn't feel like empty promises. They felt real, and they felt right. "I believe in us," she said softly, looking into his eyes. "And I'm ready for whatever comes next." As they stood there, side by side, Sarah realized that they had made it through the storm. They had faced the worst of it, and now, they were stronger for it. The future was uncertain, yes, but they had each other. And that was enough. They walked into the next chapter of their lives, hand in hand, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. For the first time in years, Sarah felt truly at peace. She had found her way back to love, not the kind of love that existed in fairy tales, but the kind that was real, the kind that grew stronger with each passing day. And as she looked at Richard, she knew that together, they would continue to build the life they had always